A recent viral video on Douyin featuring a Marine unit at Liugong Island struggling to fold their blankets to military standards has sparked widespread amusement online. The comment section erupted with laughter, and many viewers repeatedly watched the footage, entertained by the soldiers' efforts. In the video, a frustrated squad leader orders his soldiers, "Everyone, take your blankets and fold them to the highest standard within 20 minutes. We've been in training for 3 months, and now we need both quality and speed." However, the results were far from satisfactory. The squad leader, exasperated, points at one recruit's blanket, "Whose blanket is this? Look at these uneven edges. Did you even fold it properly? Did you pull out the corners? Where are the sharp angles? This is round, not square." As punishment, the entire unit was ordered to carry their blankets downstairs for assembly. One commenter joked, "If the cameraman wasn't watching, those blankets would have been thrown out the window." In the Chinese Communist Party's military, blanket folding isn't just a mundane task. It's a ritual. Blankets must be folded into a precise tofu block shape with sharp, crisp edges, perfectly smooth surfaces, and no creases. This practice is touted as a reflection of a soldier's discipline and execution skills. However, in reality, the process is grueling for recruits. The technique involves spreading the blanket flat, pressing out every wrinkle, measuring precise sections, folding with edge-to-edge alignment, and tucking in corners to form right angles. Finally, the blanket is repeatedly patted down until it appears ironed to perfection. Veterans, however, have long since found ways to cheat the system. One Douyin user revealed, "You only fold blankets in your first year. After that, we just keep pre-folded display blankets untouched for years, pulling them out for inspections when needed." Another took it further. Some sew a layer of canvas inside the blanket so it stays stiff like a steel plate. This exposes the so-called tofu block as a product of tricks and shortcuts rather than genuine discipline. While the CCP boasts about military modernization and efficiency, its soldiers are busy sewing canvas into blankets and perfecting displays for inspections, hardly relevant skills for real combat. As one commenter put it, "So the entire strong army dream is sewn into these blankets." The punishments for failing to fold blankets correctly can be extreme. One Douyin user shared, "My blanket was thrown out of a second-floor window. I had to pick it up and refold it." Another recalled, "I kept retrieving my blanket every morning, never sure if the one I picked up was even mine." One of the most shocking reports came from a soldier who said, "During inspections, our commander and platoon leader would check from the ground floor, tossing blankets into the air if they weren't folded correctly. One of mine ended up in the toilet." Others joked, "Veterans taught us that a poorly folded blanket is forgivable, but you better keep the bathroom spotless, otherwise your blanket might end up there." The harshest reality remains for the soldiers themselves. One lamented, "Who here has had to wash their squad leader's underwear?" A comment that received overwhelming likes in the comment section. With troops busy washing their superiors' clothes and chasing down their blankets, what kind of military readiness does this reflect? Another Douyin video further highlights the absurdity of the CCP's military culture. In the clip, an instructor smugly announces,
"今天是个好天气，所以我临时决定加个餐。"
"The weather is nice today, so I've decided to add a special drill. Before sunrise, we'll march 50 kilometers. What do you think?" The soldiers' faces turn pale. One brave recruit hesitantly reminds him,
今天是星期日。
"Sir, today is Sunday." The instructor glares back, "I have the authority to change plans at any time. That's a 2-point deduction." Another soldier asks why they weren't given prior notice. The instructor scoffs, "Should I hire you a nanny? That's another 5 points deducted." A graduate with a master's in optoelectronics then questions the impact of sleep deprivation on physical health, only to be berated. "You chose the wrong career. How dare you question me? That's another 2 points off. And speak louder. Don't sound so weak." A fellow recruit tries to calm the situation, but the instructor snaps, "Stop interfering. 5 more points deducted." Another soldier timidly suggests, "Sir, maybe we should remind them that life has meaning and dreams await." The instructor's response, 10 points deducted for being naive. This raises serious concerns about the CCP military's discipline and structure. While they claim to enforce a strict command, it appears that even breathing the wrong way can get a soldier penalized. Douyin users mockingly summarized, "The safest strategy? Say nothing at all." Others criticized, "Reasonable training is called exercise. Unreasonable training is just torment." The real issue behind these absurdities is the deep-rooted structural flaws of the CCP military. Recent reports highlight several critical weaknesses that could severely impact combat effectiveness. Taiwanese defense analyst Shen Mingshi points out that while the CCP aspires to modern joint operations like the US military, its command and control system remains outdated. Military decisions, including something as simple as whether a submarine surfaces, often require committee meetings. One viral joke sums it up. The commander orders an attack, but the political officer disagrees. Before the battle starts, they're already arguing. Reports also highlight a major flaw. During wartime, if disagreements arise and there's no time to escalate decisions, the military commander takes charge. But politically, the commissar has the final say. A victorious commander could still find himself punished upon returning from battle. As Taiwanese expert Jie Zhong put it, the more chaotic the leadership, the slower the decisions. The CCP's strong army dream is stuck in endless meetings. The enemy won't even need to attack. This army will defeat itself in the conference room. Shen Mingshi also notes that while the CCP has developed advanced technology like Beidou satellites, its joint operations capabilities remain disorganized. The military still struggles with inter-service coordination, meaning that even if they possess advanced jets like the J-20, their communication and operational culture remain far behind the US. Another critical issue is China's shrinking youth population. By 1990, those under 18 made up 35% of the population, 400 million people. By 2030, that number will drop to 20%, 240 million. While China still has 3 times more military-age youth than the US, the problem lies in quality rather than quantity. The CCP doesn't just need soldiers who can fold blankets. It needs personnel capable of operating J-20s and robotic warfare systems. However, the rural recruits who form the bulk of the military often lack technical proficiency. A Douyin user described how university graduates sent to the military struggle to understand equipment manuals, likening them to ancient scripts. In contrast, the US military trains recruits within a week, while the CCP takes 6 months and still struggles. Recruitment is also a growing nightmare. Despite increasing salaries, offering loan forgiveness, and guaranteeing post-service employment, the CCP still fails to attract skilled STEM graduates. Even with over 11 million university graduates in 2023 and a youth unemployment rate exceeding 20%, few are willing to enlist. The reason? Harsh military life, poor career prospects, and a stifling authoritarian culture that leaves no room for innovation. Military bases are often in remote areas with no internet access, and rigid hierarchies make career advancement difficult. A recent viral video on Douyin features a Gen Z university graduate who voluntarily enlisted in the Southern Theater Command Air Force Base, but struggled to adapt within a month. From September 24th, he frequently expressed his inability to cope with military life and strict regulations, repeatedly applying for discharge. Officers and family members attempted to pressure him into staying, warning him of serious consequences for refusing military service. However, he remained resolute. By October 24th, he was officially expelled, fined over 50,000 yuan, and blacklisted for violating national defense obligations. He was barred from further education for 2 years, and his case was reported to his university. His identity was even publicly broadcasted across the county for 7 consecutive days. This is not an isolated case, but rather a common occurrence. The CCP relies on coercion to retain personnel, yet young people would rather face penalties than wear the uniform. Can a strong army really be sustained through fines? The issue extends beyond retention. China's one-child generation presents another significant challenge. With 70% of People's Liberation Army, or PLA, soldiers being only children, Military leaders frequently complain that these recruits are physically weak and mentally fragile due to their upbringing. A widely shared Douyin video captures a recruit lamenting,
一训练我肠子都悔青。
Training has made me regret everything. I can't even do a single pull-up, barely manage 10 push-ups, and my 3-kilometer run takes 22 minutes. My legs, head, and eyes hurt. Out of 400 recruits, I ranked second to last. The pressure is overwhelming. In response, the PLA has increased psychological counseling and intensified physical training, but these measures appear ineffective. Military academies report high dropout rates, with the National University of Defense Technology seeing the highest attrition. Once expelled, these cadets face severe consequences, including being labeled deserters and permanently losing opportunities for government or state-owned enterprise jobs. While the CCP boasts about high morale, it seems the only thing recruits are eager to escape is the military life itself. The CCP also takes pride in its military exercises, claiming they reveal 99% of real combat problems, with the Zhuzhihe training base's elite Blue Army, led by Brigade Commander Man Guangzhi, being hailed as the strongest on Earth. Zhuzhihe, located in Inner Mongolia, is the PLA's largest live combat simulation base, often referred to as the Eastern Normandy. The Blue Army is a permanent unit, while the Red Army consists of rotating challengers from across China. Since 2014, Man Guangzhi's unit has won 32 out of 33 exercises, with the only Red Army victory being a costly one, leaving just 15 surviving soldiers. However, this dominance is not due to fair competition. The Blue Army enjoys cheat mode advantages, such as superior equipment, and tanks that require 2 hits to be destroyed, while Red Army tanks are disabled in a single shot. They also have superior battlefield familiarity, access to air support, electronic warfare capabilities, and even simulated nuclear weapons. Netizens joke, Man Guangzhi doesn't play fair. These drills are just his showcase. Dramatic headlines further highlight the absurdity of PLA exercises. Air conditioning failure leads to battlefield defeat, and field kitchen heat signature exposes entire army. The air conditioning failure incident occurred during a red versus blue exercise, where the Red Army had successfully used Beidou navigation to pinpoint Blue Army positions. Just as they were preparing to launch an attack, their command center suffered a sudden power outage. The reason? Overuse of air conditioning caused an electrical overload, tripping the circuit breaker. To make matters worse, backup power was under maintenance and failed to activate in time. Within 3 minutes, the Blue Army launched a counteroffensive, bombarding Red Army positions with aircraft and missiles, eventually surrounding and annihilating them. Post-exercise analysis revealed this to be a basic mistake, yet battlefield conditions offer no reset button. Military protocols dictate that backup power must always be available and air conditioning should be restricted, but routine negligence led to disaster. Online reactions were swift. So the PLA's combat effectiveness depends on air conditioning? Another user quipped, if a mere drill results in a blackout, imagine them in actual combat. Would they surrender with fans in hand? The field kitchen heat signature incident was equally revealing. The Red Army meticulously concealed its artillery positions, believing them to be impenetrable. However, the Blue Army deployed thermal imaging reconnaissance, detecting an unexpected heat source. A single artillery strike wiped out the entire unit. The culprit? A field kitchen parked too close to the artillery site, its heat emissions betraying the Red Army's location. Commenters ridiculed the situation. PLA strategy, eat first, fight later. The kitchen practically shouted, we're here. Another joked, their combat effectiveness got cooked along with the rice. These incidents highlight not just comedic errors, but the deeper flaws in PLA exercises. The CCP claims its drills simulate 99% real combat conditions, yet failures like electrical overloads and misplaced kitchens expose systemic issues in operational readiness and command discipline. Meanwhile, the PLA promotes its NCO, non-commissioned officer system, as a game changer, boasting that high salaries retain experienced personnel. A top-tier sergeant major earns 16,000 yuan per month and receives officer-level retirement benefits. The theory is that pairing seasoned NCOs with young recruits creates an ideal balance of experience and strength. The CCP argues that modern warfare relies on high-tech equipment, making veteran soldiers more valuable than fresh recruits, thus solving the slow training problem. But how effective is this strategy in actual combat? Will these elite veterans willingly deploy to the front lines? With many young soldiers coming from the one-child generation and struggling with basic physical endurance, even the most experienced NCOs cannot single-handedly transform them into a formidable force. The CCP frequently references past disaster relief efforts, such as the 1998 floods, the 2008 Sichuan earthquake, and the 2020 pandemic, as proof of PLA resilience. The narrative paints soldiers as fearless, jumping into floodwaters, braving aftershocks, and charging into pandemic zones. However, real warfare isn't a controlled publicity event. The 14 paratroopers deployed in the Sichuan earthquake had pre-written wills and media coverage backing them. On the battlefield, there are no cameras for propaganda reels. During the pandemic, soldiers wore full protective gear, but the risks were nothing compared to actual combat fatalities. While US forces in Iraq have endured real combat, the PLA hasn't seen actual bloodshed in over 40 years. If their training doesn't even simulate real casualties, how prepared are they for war? The CCP emphasizes systematic warfare, arguing that individual heroism is obsolete and that the PLA's strength lies in execution and technology. However, their so-called evidence is based on scripted drills and Man Guangzhi's invincible Blue Army simulations. In reality, systematic warfare remains the PLA's greatest weakness. While the military still operates primarily through coordinated branch maneuvers, it lacks integrated command structures and streamlined communications. In exercises, Man Guangzhi's simulated nuclear strike instantly wipes out the Red Army. But in real life, the political commissar wouldn't first need to convene a meeting to decide who has the authority to push the button. Soldiers may not be proficient with their firearms, but they can recite ideological slogans perfectly, a system more suited for indoctrination than combat. A former PLA officer shared his experience on Zhihu, detailing how 8 years of service became a personal nightmare. He enlisted through a university program, attended a military academy, and served for 2 years before leaving with a disciplinary record. The reason? He was unable to visit his grandfather, who had suffered a stroke. During the pandemic, he requested leave to see his critically ill grandfather, only for military officials to delay approval. By the time leave was granted, his grandfather had deteriorated severely. When he pleaded for an extension, his superiors coldly responded, "We've seen this before. Follow orders and return immediately, or face the consequences." His grandfather passed away while he was still negotiating leave. Frustrated, he left the military, only to expose deeper systemic corruption, where transfers required bribes and bureaucratic inefficiencies ran rampant. His story is not unique, but reflective of widespread dysfunction within the CCP's military structure. When it comes to the CCP's 13 group armies, each has its own unique set of problems. The 80th Group Army is widely regarded as having the worst equipment, relying on outdated Type 59 tanks and aging Type 86 infantry fighting vehicles that resemble museum exhibits. Douyin users mockingly comment, "The 80th might as well be using shovels as tanks and trying to scare off Mongolians with slogans." However, this is not an isolated issue. It reflects the broader reality of the CCP's military resource allocation. With a limited budget, priority is given to elite units near Taiwan, such as the 72nd, 73rd, and 74th Group Armies, as well as the 78th Group Army in the Northeast. The 82nd Group Army, known as the Wealthy Brigade, regularly tests new weapons. Meanwhile, the 80th is left to make do with decades-old equipment. A recent internal report confirms that military funds are primarily directed toward high-profile projects like the J-20 fighter jet and aircraft carriers, leaving ordinary units to struggle with outdated gear. The report also highlights that under Xi Jinping's leadership, the PLA has become more professional, but also increasingly risk-averse. Excessive battlefield casualties would damage the CCP's carefully curated image of national strength. With legitimacy already on shaky ground, another disastrous military loss could spark public outrage. As a result, elite units receive the bulk of funding, while less prioritized units, like the 80th Group Army, are left neglected. One netizen summed it up. The CCP's military dream consists of 6th-generation jets in the sky, Type 59 tanks crawling on the ground, and blanket folding contests in between. Who wouldn't laugh at that?